What's up, everybody? Cowboy, Tuesday morning, 8:32 a.m. Okay, let's get started. Let's jump into the markets. We got Bitcoin seems to be ranging a bit, and we have a little bit of economic data coming out today. So let's go ahead and jump into the data first. We'll see what kind of news is coming out, how it might affect the charts. The good news is the news itself, the economic data itself, would have to be pretty severe in order to affect the charts a lot, right? So here we have the consumer confidence and the job openings data. And the job openings, these are both high impact events, and they're at 10 a.m. EST. And the amount, like the whatever the measure is, would have to be very, very different from the expected number in order to affect the markets, especially anything outside of the FX, out of the Forex market. So this type of news is going to affect the Forex market more so than other markets. Now, if the estimate here for consumer confidence is 99.8, right? So if that estimate is way off from whatever they decide to put out, same here where you have the job openings is going to be 8.2 million. If those numbers are way off, then we might see something happen. And I do have a trade on right now that I shared with Algo Factory about 10 minutes ago. Great entry on a euro short. It's about a 2.5 risk to reward trade. And if they, I'll be moving a stop to entry right before all that data comes out because it's already slightly in profit. And I do expect that trade to continue to move towards profit based on the metrics. So that said, that's in another hour and a half. So if that trade is still on, if it hasn't gone to my profit point, then I will move my stop loss to probably the entry, maybe even take profit prior to the news. But a lot of times, if I can get into a trade, get my stop to entry, then the trade can skyrocket that into profits. And if it goes the other way, no harm, no foul. Stops out at entry, no big deal. So that's the way that I do trade news, but the trade itself has to be pretty reliable. It's got to be a good trade. And that's just how it is for me to take a trade anyway. So later on today, 9:30 p.m. EST, Aussie dollar news. We talked about that a couple days ago, and I would be staying away from anything that is the Japanese yen today because as we talked about yesterday, they don't really say when they're going to drop the announcement. They just say it's going to be today sometime. So you don't know when they're going to talk about whatever they're going to do with their rates. And the Japanese yen, like all eyes are on that right now. That's big, big news. So any kind of Japanese yen trade would affect things. And by the way, the tie-in with the U.S. equities market and really the international equities market, that's a strong tie-in, by the way, for the yen. And what I mean by that is if there's a big change in the policy for the Japanese yen, that can affect equities markets across the board. So I would actually be kind of careful with any equities trades. Just kind of letting you know. Go ahead and drop a comment. Tell us hello. I got CGD in the house. Always good to have you, brother. And if you have some kind of charts that you want to see, let's go ahead and do that. I got a request from Daniel yesterday while we were doing our 10% chat, and he wanted to see some like FANG stocks and stuff like that. So we'll take a look at Bitcoin. We'll take a look at maybe Facebook and Apple, those kind of stocks real quick. And that'll be what we look at today here on the Algo Factory Live Lab, the free to the public one. We got a good 5 to, I'm going to let it run till about 8:42 because we started just a hair late. So we should have time for all that. Bitcoin itself is on an uptrend. And there is a pretty substantial rejection, though, that happened yesterday. So price could head back down. We got some levels that I'd be looking at for that. But the rejection, this is basically on the daily chart. You see this big wick up here. Let me put an arrow to it so that the crosshair doesn't obscure that. But there's the wick right there. And that means that the bulls tried to rally up and then they got crushed, and price has been going down ever since. And after that candle as well, there are some bearish indicators. So this is an indication that price might head down. However, I'm looking at the weekly algo when I put on my crazy screen. where, with all the data on it here, this screen right here. And the weekly algo is actually telling me not to go short just yet. I can short, I can take a short on like the 30-minute or the 3-hour, that's okay. But to try to short on a higher time frame, it's saying not to do that. So that tells me that however far it goes down is probably not, at the moment, going to head down past 60,000. However, if price does start to head down, that metric can change, and I do need to keep an eye on what all that's doing. So these things change right as we're looking at them, right? So what it says now may not be what it says in 2 hours, and that's why when you're trading sort of low time frame stuff, when you're day trading, you got to watch out for that. There's Daniel himself. Was just talking about you, bud. We're going to take a look at some FANG stocks today for you. So that's Bitcoin. I would be looking right now at this level right here. There's been a couple of pivot points. So if price heads down, it might pivot point back up right here, which is basically at 63,300, right about there. March, what's up, March? Hey, March, let me know if we're doing spaces today. I know we usually we try to do on Tuesdays spaces with March and some of his muckety muck hedge fund buddies. So if, let me know, March, what we're going to do about that. I sent a message in our Telegram chat. So there's that. I would expect Bitcoin, it might go down there if it heads down. And once it hits 63,000, if it hits 63,000, I would look for a possible pivot up. However it behaves around 63,000 is going to tell us quite a bit about what's going on, though, right? Because that's the key pivot point in the recent history, right? So we'll just keep an eye on it. For now, though, I expect let's see, take a quick look here. Yeah, I do expect price. It might not make it down there, but for the moment, I expect price to kind of go sideways to down and maybe head down towards 62. That's what I got for that. Let's take a look at. We'll take a look at Facebook stock. I think Meta is the new name for that. And Meta, okay. Let's just look at the algo page first here. Just see what the data says. So high time frame Meta is bullish, but right now it's a little bit bearish on the weekly. So if I were to look at the weekly chart, really go high time frame on this, Meta is just kind of, it's getting tired. It's flagging. So you've got a double top on Meta. And, there's a lot of stocks right now that are taking a break. You got the SP 500, which of course is, that's also taking a break. We might have to take a look at the SP 500 today. But this is, I think technically it's a double top. Yeah, it is. So I would look out for this. In fact, this might be a great 2618 trade. And so the way that works is price. This may not happen, but it pretty much is right already here. So is this it? Or is no, I think it actually, shoot, I've forgotten how to do my 2618. But I think this is the trade right here. If Bitcoin rally or Bitcoin, if Meta rallies up to about 486, and if the rest of the market is still bearish at that time, you need a bearish market for this. What you might see is let me see on the current time frame, it still wants to head down a bit, right? So what may happen is you get this like this and price rallies up and then heads down. And that's a pretty good trade right here. If price heads up to about 486, it might go a little bit higher, but if it touches 486, keep an eye out for a rejection to the downside, and then you would have what's called the 2618 trade. And I probably would short it down to here, or if I wasn't shorting at all, I would look to go ahead and maybe average in. I'd start buying Facebook around 380 and maybe get another chunk as it hits 347. But again, I would be paying attention to the entire market as I was doing that. I wouldn't just willy-nilly buy like that. I'd make sure that the rest of the market is stabilizing and everything's not headed down. So, but for the moment, it does want to go at least sideways. It might head down a little bit, but I think it wants to head sideways. But if at some point it may rally up to 480, and I would look for a rejection around there. Some people with other markets would simply just enter right there for this kind of trade. But the way I tend to do things is I'm looking at the rest of the market, looking at Meta, seeing how things are going. Earnings is coming up and that's at the end of July. So earnings could have a real effect on things. In fact, earnings could be what pushes price up to grab that 618 that's generated from this impulse down on the double top. So you can look that trade up. It's 2618. You can look it up online. It's a specific kind of a trade. It's just one of the mini trades that's floating around in the back of my head. So that's Meta. And let's go ahead and take a look at Google. Is that Alphabet stock? Yeah, it's Alphabet. So we'll take a look at Alphabet. Yeah, similar look. Like obviously Meta was already kind of flagging out, but Alphabet's going to be looking a lot like the SP 500. Nasty, what do you call this? A gap down on the weekly open this week. Pretty nasty. So we had an opening. Let me draw this box here. The weekly opened right here. At least for, well, this wasn't the weekly. This is the 5-day chart, right? So if I were just to transmute this to the weekly, you won't see that gap. But because I use the 5-day, it's a little different of a story. But long story short, that's a bleed out. Price bleeding out. And it will bleed out until it doesn't. And what I mean by that is that right now, the metrics, even on the weekly, are pretty bearish, right? Like there's enough support right now on the for me, the 18-hour, but for the daily, where if the rest of the market were to kind of catch up and start to push upwards, then price has room to head up. And that could easily happen with the FOMC tomorrow, right? So whatever they decide to do to the rate might have a lot of effect on the market right now. But the market is falling right now. And that's just an overall look. So what I would expect for Google, though, is if we do get some kind of buoyancy from some kind of dovish talk from Powell or something like that, then I would expect this area to get filled in somewhere between 173 to 178. I would expect price to head back up there. And for the moment, though, I also see that price is going to want to fill in this area as well. So metric wise, though, everything is still bearish. I would not be ready to go long on this just yet for any kind of distance, right? Like if I was just kind of investing in this and I was going to hold it for a period of time, I might get some right here because it has pulled back a decent amount, and I do expect stocks over time to go up. I might be getting some right here, but I wouldn't enter my whole amount right here. I'd save some dry powder. Via the Guerilla, how are you, sir?
Good morning, my man. How are you? The markets are falling.
Yep.
As per the U.S. government releasing some of the Silk Road captured Bitcoin and whatnot on the other.
Oh
They're pushing.
no, the news story, the news.
What's the latest?
No, I don't
Google is
believe it.
taking.
I don't listen to any of that shit, dude. If Bitcoin's falling, it's gonna fall because it was falling. I don't, so the government really is like. There's always these stories about Plus Token and Plus Token coming back in the market, but what I believe with that, that's just like, and I might be wrong about this. I don't mean to like shit all over what you're saying, but these news stories to me are just so that these news like agencies have shit to peddle, like because they don't know how to read stocks. I mean, they don't know how to read charts. I think the charts were going to fall no matter what, and that's just some news they can sell. But I could be wrong. I don't know. Just my thoughts.
That is yes. All of those things are happening at the same time, my friend.
Yeah,
All
it's
of it.
all at the same time. I mean, this is
Yes.
not. This is Alphabet. This is Google. Yeah, Daniel Luper.
That's
Oh man, I
alphabet.
hope I say Lupericcio. I hope I said that right, Daniel. Daniel wanted to see some Fang stocks, so we're taking Fang
Gotcha.
stocks. Right? Bitcoin itself, we just looked at that, so we'll go ahead and end the public live. We'll jump into the private. We can dig deeper into Bitcoin a little bit. So do you want to get us over to private, sir?
Let's get over to private.
Okay.
Folks, thank you all for listening in. Keep it locked and loaded right here, algofactory.tech. Join us or die.
Join us or die.